All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the matchups of today. Easy and breezy. I think I don't want to spend too much time on the series that we just played. I do think that Koi, in the opening game, I was disappointed by their approach. This is too skewed towards scaling. For me to beat Bilibili, you need to make sure that your 3v3 is insanely strong and that you can stay active in the jungle and attack them when they are isolated by figuring out ways to group. And in game one, you didn't really give yourself options to do so with the Maokai and then Yon into the Aurora. Not a big fan of that. I didn't like that at all. Bilibili had really strong lane matchups, and I think this is their strength. Even though Koi maybe could have won, but I think Bilibili, if they are strong in the game, they're really, really good at taking charge of the game, and they are really, really good at like playing through lanes, and they lane super well. And then they are insane at fucking team fighting. Like this game, it ended in such a beautiful way where there was a 3v5 fight. But Bilibili team fighting is just menacing, absolutely menacing. Koi and Bilibili and the CFO T1 series, they kind of deserve a video of their own in terms of the full breakdown. But I just wanted to share some general thoughts. I think in game two, at this one in particular, they really, really isolated Bin on the Gwen. Bin died so many times on side and they managed to kill him over and over again. I think that Alvaro was absolutely brilliant throughout the entire series. I think you can say the same for On. I think both the supports absolutely played out of their minds in this series. I thought this game in particular, it was also like Azir got super, super fed. There were, many details you can point to, especially with the engage angles that Wukong and Rel found, and Mkoi was finally on the board. They punished, of course, the Gwen super, super hard there. Here in game 3, I think Bilibili, a big difference in comparison to what we saw in the LPL, a big difference from Bilibili, especially because they went through play-ins too, so they have some games under the belt. They currently have won 9 games in the MSI and lost 1. So they played a total of 10 games. I feel like Bilibili has finally recognized how they should draft. They are picking heavy early game skewed bot lanes. They're playing champions in mid lane that Knight is really fucking good on. And that's all. I think there is still some work to be done with Bin, but I do think that Bilibili has figured out a lot about themselves. And the way they played the Caitlyn and the Lees, I feel like Beishuan, if there were no nameplates, you could say that Beishuan had a very Shun-like performance here on the Vi and also on the Scanner, in my opinion. I think that, Beishuan is finding his footing, and I think that Bilibili draft-wise are also figuring out a lot of important details, which I think is super cool. I was surprised that Mirwin picked Aatrox instead of Ambessa. Maybe he kept it for the next game. Could be entirely possible. The Aatrox into Sion is a very, very common answer, but Mirwin is not known for playing Aatrox at all, and I think it was quite visible because he was getting kind of destroyed in the matchup. Caitlyn seems to be popping off with this tournament, currently at 4-0. All the Caitlyn players look fucking insane when they slam it down. That's something to pay attention to for sure. In the final game, this was also awfully close, I think. Awfully, awfully close. Koi had a very good position in the game where basically they set up for a Nash. They got the Nasher off of a crazy Ambessa play. She lifestole super, super much. And then Bilibili found a way to maneuver through the game. I think Koi didn't recognize that it needed to pull the trigger, send more Sejuani ultimates, use Ryze ult to reposition, engage with Ambessa. I think Ambessa also buying BT was completely troll. Could have optimized the build a little better, therefore the Ambessa. The game ended in the end. Bilibili, of course, with their comp, if they have no mid turret, Syndra and Ashe are very vulnerable to flanks, and that's how you break them. So this is a very, very immobile comp. But in the end, Ambessa just got hit with an Ashe arrow in the head, got caught on mid-wave, and Bilibili actually ended the game, even though Koi actually had Mountain Soul in this game. I think that might take about, of course, Koi having the highest chance of upsetting. I do think that it was a very, very good take based off of this series in the contrast of the other 3. If I think about closeness, I think maybe you can have an argument for Fly 2, right? Because of that Viego game that was awfully close. But this was before CFO played T1. I think, for those who are going to ask, I think between CFO and T1, I do think that, I think it was a mix of T1 actually not playing super well, and at the same time, CFO really performing super well. Game 1, I think CFO lost their mind, right? It was that Atakan play. They were in a super winning position, and they have Nash. Instead of pushing on the waves, they just walk into a T1 fight in a T1 area where they're out of position to defend everything, which was super stupid. Kaiwing went on the longest flank of all time and just died, and CFO lost the game. This was the biggest stomp that we saw at this tournament until the game 5 of this series too. This was insane for CFO because Kaiwing is not known for playing the range champs. The fact that they pulled out Lucian Nami and played so well in Kalista Renata was a very good punish. An additional detail here is that Faker had a performance similar to Gwen on Bin and Gwen, where Faker was dying to every gank, dying to every side lane play, and ended the game with like 8 deaths in a catastrophic way. This was a very, very one-sided affair, and Honkyu really showed how much of a super talent this player is. Honkyu is absolutely brilliant, and it was fun to see, of course, the swapping back and forth. All right, we talked about this stomp. The game 3 as well, CFO with the Swain, they also fucking stomped this game with the split map into the dive. It just looked like CFO was way better, man. Way better. CFO was absolutely smurfing it. Even this game 4 was insanely competitive. This was just a Keria masterclass. He had to do crazy poppy ultimates to even keep them in the game. Rumble had some good plays too. Early game was really good with the challenge onto Casio. But even in this one, Faker made some massive mistakes. He went for an all-in. He defended a bot dive. Was super far behind on CS, but eventually recovered with a death cap and a final good team fight. And then in the end, I think that CFO kind of overcooked their draft here in the final one. I was surprised that T1 didn't go for Zaira Khan in the 1-2, but they went for the Jace, and this Jace obviously fucking slammed this Ornn into the ground, which was really, really cool. They went for the Zaira Khan, and Orianna was slammed, a Faker classic, and then they went Jinx and Tom. And I think CFO needed to go Maokai and Yone here to go into a full committal comp here with Orianna into the Jace and the with the Ornn into the Jace. Orianna would have been better. Instead, they picked like mid-range champs that get outranged by Jinx, Orianna, and Jace in Tristana and Zyra. Orianna is used as a counter into Tristana, and I think CFO showcased here that they kind of ran out of pool here. I think Maokai and Yone would have been a better pairing, would have been better in my opinion. And maybe you find like a different AP, maybe pick like Hui. But I think that Maokai Yone works so well because you're lacking engage here. And T1, I do think that they played pretty damn good in the final game. But I do think that their early matches were very, very poor. Very poor coordination. Didn't feel like Owner and Keria had a lot of traction in the game. You could see that Faker was a big liability in my opinion. Even in that opening game, I think that, the mid gap was very severe. The mid laners at this tournament, I feel like the majority of them are performing super, super good. And Faker is an outlier with that conversation right now. Like Faker, you could argue that out of the mid laners left, that he is the worst performing one. Sure, he had that, team fight at the end of game 4, or he had, for example, the solo kill in game 5. But it's like looking at where everybody is at right now in terms of form. Shanks was performing good. Like Chovy didn't even perform that well, if I'm going to be honest. Caps was having a great series against GenG, and someone in chat said Caps got solo bullet twice or more, dude. Yeah, because Caps played 3-4 times more games than T1, and we are looking at current form in the top 8, and Caps performed pretty damn well against GenG. Jojo performed pretty damn good against Bilibili. Knight had a great series too. Shanks played good too. Quad had great games. Like the mid laners right now are really, really performing at this tournament. So I'm looking forward to see how Faker, grows into the tournament, because it did seem like T1 started very stiff, They started very, very stiff. And Faker had these issues regionally as well, in terms of the lane phase and dying to ganks. And I think this is something that will plague T1 for the remainder of the tournament, But I do think that T1 can play better than they did in the earlier games. I did think it's like we saw AL lose game 1, we saw GenG lose game 1. You know, I think T1 just needed a couple of more games to really warm up to it. Like usually at internationals, like T1 do tend to start really fucking slow, you know. So I did say in my rundown, CFO, this is the opportunity to take it. T1 tend to start slow. But I think always in tournaments like this, I think that these players are going to, of course, you know, get used to things, and they also will figure out how they want to draft. Because, for example, this game 1 draft here from AL is probably not going to happen again with the Zaya into the long range, right? Or the GenG first one, you know, some outdated drafting here, right? Where can I see Yamato's pick him? I made a video about it. Let's talk about the matchups that are coming up, guys. We have G2 versus FlyQuest, GenG versus Anyone's Legend. So I don't have a good image to show while we wait. But G2 versus FlyQuest, I do think that FlyQuest should be the better team. I think the main edge, if we want to talk about what G2 could maybe have as an advantage, I think the volume of games has made G2 a lot more in tune with what works for them and what doesn't work for them. I think this series, my main concern is that Labrov had a fine series here by his standard. It was an okay series. But I think that's also because nobody expected them to do shit to GenG. But now it's elimination time. So I just expect Labrov to fold like a lawn chair. G2, I expect them to have better prep work, better drafting, just because I think FlyQuest drafting was god-awful. I don't like the Bwipo counter picks. I didn't like them at all. But I do think that FlyQuest, in terms of gameplay, is just better. I think it's just better. I think Inspired was really, really good in the AL series. I think Busio played pretty damn good too. But the funny thing is, like, Bwipo and BB are so similar that they have their goofy counter picks that just didn't work out. But I do think that BB just set such a low bar right now in terms of performance. So I do expect Bwipo to be better. And I think FlyQuest team fighting was just insanely decisive and really, really sharp. So I think that FlyQuest will win the series against G2. And I do think that FlyQuest, I think G2 is a way easier team to prep against than against AL, because AL, I think they have a far wider range of play. Some things that G2 can take away from this series is that Renekton ban that really cuts through. But the issue is they can't capitalize on it the same way, because BB doesn't play Ambessa. BB doesn't play Yorick as well. And that's, you know, pretty damn bad. Like, that's pretty damn bad. So I expect FlyQuest to just smoke G2. I put G2 as the lowest ranked team, just ahead of GAM and Furia, and I don't think anything changed. I did think that this was a good series for them in terms of their, you know, progression, but I don't think it's enough, and I think it's far too late, and I think it just won't matter. Caps has been playing good. He could be, you know, the hidden gem here. But I expect FlyQuest to be better. But I think, if anything, FlyQuest can trap themselves in shitty drafts. So, there's that. Anyone's Legend versus GenG. Now, this is also super exciting, because I think GenG, in terms of their prep work, tend to be quite disrespectful. And I think that they are playing with a lot of variance in their drafting that makes it dangerous. I think, in terms of the level of Ruler and Duro, I think it looks pretty damn good. I think they've set a higher bar than what I expected based on the eye test, but it's also still a very small sample size. And I think playing against Hope and Kael is very different than playing against Labrov and Hans Sama. I think Tabe, there's a little bit of coach gap towards AL side. I think like jungle support synergy is higher. And I didn't think that Chovy showed like a super, super high level in the opening series. But GenG is GenG. And I think they do tend to do that thing where they play to their opponent. And until I see GenG lose, I can't really bet against them. In my pick'em, I put AL win and then AL lose against GenG in the final, but that is more like a gut call. It has nothing to do with where we're at. I just have a hard time even imagining GenG losing before it happens. But if we want to point to certain things, it's their drafting work, their inconsistencies in bot lane, and their lack of jungle support synergy. But the main issue for me is, even in that lack of jungle support synergy, I think that the solo lanes of GenG are just impossible to break. They are so damn hard to break. So Cannon gets to farm, and his solo lanes just also keep farming and play to the range of their champions so damn well. And I think that GenG are going to look at AL with far better, with glasses on, in comparison to the G2-1, like in the opening game when they looked up and pulled up a Braum here as an example, So there's that. I think tomorrow's going to be an absolute banger. I think MCoy, Bilibili, these series deserve a lot more effort than I gave it, but we are currently at 6 a.m. I still wanted to get a video out before tomorrow. I think this series here, CFO versus T1, really, really fucking delivered.